Hi, this is Lindy Kaiser with clearancejobs.com. Thank you everyone so much for joining us for today's webinar. Today we are joined by a dynamic and engaging team with Booz Allen who are going to talk about modernizing the battlefield. I'm showing just 1 minute left on the countdown clock, so I'll give you a last minute to take a drink. I'm already on drinks. I mean, just let's be honest, Steve's taking a drink. You don't have time to actually go get a cup of coffee at this point, people, because we're going to start soon, but you can grab a drink, grab a sip, grab your notebook. A few housekeeping notes as we look to get started here. During the webinar, you are muted as attendees, but if you have questions, these amazing folks with Booz Allen will be taking your questions throughout the webinar, so please type them into the questions box on the side of the screen. If we don't get them during the webinar today, if we can't get to your question, we will respond to it later, but we will be answering questions as we go, so don't hold your questions to the end. If they say something that prompts something, you want to ask a question, the more of those we get during the course of the webinar, the more we can engage with you and get your questions answered during the webinar. So with that, I have 4 p.m. Eastern time. We will go ahead and get started again. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar with Booz Allen about modernizing the battlefield and the digital battle space. We are joined by digital battle space leaders with Booz Allen. First, we have Steve Modica. He is a distinguished technologist with Booz Allen. Then we also have Dake Amenya. He is a senior lead engineer. And then we have Laura Croft, who is a chief scientist. And we also are joined by Heather Holdaway, who is a technical recruiter with Booz Allen. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Dake was preparing for a demo just minutes before, and that's just how exciting this work is. These are folks that are actively engaged in this battle space. So they're taking time away from that to chat with you all. So I appreciate, our attendees and those who have taken the time to join us. And I appreciate all of you as panelists taking the time out of your days to talk about Booz Allen and what makes it a unique place to work and some of the unique work and projects that you're doing. So with that, I just kind of want to define what exactly we're talking about here to get started. So what is this kind of digital battle space mission? How does that play out in the work that you're doing at Booz Allen? I'm going to start with you, Stephen.
Well, at Booz Allen, Digital Battle Space was designed to be a cross-cutting organization to help us break down some of the stovepipes that we see when you think about Army, Air Force, Navy. They often start up projects on their own to solve a problem like the Advanced Battle Management System. And so they work on their own project and it's all kind of kept in their own space. And the Army doesn't know what the Navy's doing and the Navy doesn't know what the Air Force is doing. And part of what we can do with the digital battle space platform, especially in the realm of a classified environment, is we ourselves can go into those places and understand what's going on, and then bring that to the other classified environments that we might get the opportunity to work in because we're cross-cutting. So I can cross-pollinate something I've been doing with the Army, with the Air Force, and their tactical cloud environment, for example. And the goal of that is that one day, if we do come down to a conflict with a peer adversary, we're really able to integrate the true might of our economy and our innovation to the whole fight. It's not the Air Force in their own space and the Army at their own space. We've brought the whole thing, whether it's Amazon and Google or whatever else, it's all there together and we bring it all together in the battle space. And you can't do that if you're just focused Army, Air Force, Navy. Over.
Awesome. Dake, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so looking at history within Booz Allen, we've always had very, very smart people doing different things, right? And you go for one smart person building a cool thing, but there's no way to leverage that smart thing he did for the Navy at the Air Force, right? And so you're reinventing the wheel constantly. So this gives us an opportunity to just merge our collaboration with everyone else and allow for quicker, accelerated development of solutions.
And then same for you, Laura. How kind of you define the digital battle space here?
I guess expanding on what Steve and Dake were saying, we've administratively restructured in this new account. So now it's exciting for me as a manager to be able to more easily find the right talent for the different research or prototyping projects that I'm working on, because we're all now organized together as opposed to having been within different government organization accounts that were organized by customer as opposed to who's doing the same cool stuff.
Awesome. And now I kind of want you to talk about your roles. So you all have very different job titles on this call, and we know that job titles rarely tell the full story of the scope of what you do. So kind of walk through what it is you kind of do day to day and how you got to Booz Allen. I'll start with you again, Steve.
Boy, so day to day at Booz Allen, just recently I finished up a stint as the chief architect for the Titan ground station, the tactical intelligence targeting access node. And now I've been able to bring all that good work and the things I did and learned back there to the Air Force. And now I'm working on their Common Tactical Edge Network program, which is really a very similar thing, but airborne. And it's exciting to be able to cross-pollinate. And so, for example, the Air Force works on these sensor open systems architecture, SOSA, which is kind of a chassis-based compute system. Well, Titan was working on CMOS, and it turns out the SOSA standards have adopted CMOS. So this stuff all comes together, and I'm able to look at all the things that the Army's doing, all the things that the Air Force is doing with those platforms, and bring that stuff together. And what makes it even better is I get to go into the room, understand how they want to integrate with that with national technical means, for example, and bring all that together in a way that you just can't if you don't have these kind of positions. Over.
Okay, and then to you, Laura, how did you get your start with Booz Allen, and tell me about your role?
So my role is chief scientist. I'm responsible for technical execution of many projects, making sure we're building the right solutions, using the right processes to do so, and bringing in the right talent to execute it. And then I also do captures and proposals to win those jobs. So especially if you win it, then you want to make sure it's done right. And how I got here, after I got my PhD, I was looking around, I was interested in consulting, and I had heard a lot of good things about Booz Allen, and I always thought I was going to go into like medical imaging and medical technology, but when I saw the posting for what was my job back then, it looked really cool and a great fit for my skills. So now I save lives in a different way. That's the way I look at it.
I love it. And then you, Dake.
So in my old life, I used to design antennas, RF engineering, and when I'm not nerding out, I'm dancing salsa. So my old salsa dance partner worked for Booz Allen, and she was like, "Hey, Doc, you're a smart guy. Come check out, some of the things we're working on." That was 8 years ago, and I've worn many different hats, and I'm still here. She actually left the firm after a while, got married, had a family, but I'm still here. With that being said, so my background is electrical and computer engineering. I work more on the tactical network and communication space. So I'm one of the subject matter experts for the UHF satellite communications in general. And I've been on the forefront of the modernization of that from legacy equipment to more current and next gen. So I've taken all that experience that I've had over the years across multiple services and bringing that in-house to Booz Allen and helping Booz Allen shape how we move data across various transport layers. So we're not stuck with how we've done things for the last 20 years, so moving to the future.
I love that. Salsa dancing led to a career opportunity. That's a career testimonial right there. And tell us the story of work-life balance. You can dance salsa and you can be an amazing engineer at Booz Allen. That's perfect. So talk a little bit more about the challenges you're tackling in this technical space. How are you helping defense to be more resilient? We obviously know that there's, the geopolitical landscape is not getting any less intense. And so this is a really important conversation. This is a really important mission. So talk about, maybe some of that mission vector and why it's so important at Booz Allen. Steve, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. And I realized from the last question, I didn't talk about my background and how I got to Booz Allen. I was a Silicon Graphics guy and Cray for a long time, worked for those companies back in the 90s and 2000s, and was there when AOL became the internet for a while and helped them get through the scaling of that problem. And then had my own company for a long time doing device driver work for Apple and Intel. Before finally starting prototype work and coming over to Booz Allen. And why I'm excited about Booz Allen is a lot of the friends I worked with that worked at AOL back when the internet was sort of becoming the internet. spun off and went into companies like Akamai and Limelight, and basically these content delivery network companies that deliver everything you see. You go to apple.com, you go to cnn.com, you go to foxnews.com. Most of that stuff is coming through a content delivery network like Akamai. And when I started working on Titan, and when I started working on the Common Tactical Edge network for the Air Force, I brought a lot of that content delivery network know-how to the problem. How do you make sure the right data is where it needs to be when it needs to be there? How do you make sure data that isn't the same protocol, isn't coming from the same waveform, doesn't have the same content, isn't organized the same way? How do you bring it into a data fabric in such a way that it can be exchanged between players? So for example, a group on the ground who's only operating at a secret clearance can receive position and location information from a platform that's operating at a TS level. And how do you do it in such a way, not just to solve the technical problem? Anybody can build a house of cards and say, look, it's this tall. How do you build it so it's resilient? So when you take it out and show it to the Army or show it to the Air Force, they don't remove one card and your whole house falls down. And part of the challenge there is making sure you architect a system so that vendors can control their own destiny, can bring their pieces parts to plug in with good standards and good architecture that they can execute to. And when I came to Booz Allen, that's what I was looking to do, to bring forward these architectures that allow them to stitch things together, so that rather than trying to organize this construction of a house of cards that'll fall down as soon as somebody attacks it, I build resiliency in, so every vendor gets to add, and I get more. As more vendors bring me more stuff, I get to add, and I become stronger, and it becomes a 3D matrix of things I can use. And that's what we're doing. Everything we do, we bring it together to form that matrix. Over.
I love that. So we definitely know that the threats are getting more significant, they're harder, and having superiority is kind of what we're aiming for here. How does this kind of new offshoot with Booz Allen, the programs that you're working on, help ensure that technical superiority? Dake, can you take that one?
Yeah, so historically, Booz Allen's been full of very, very smart people, but also over the years, we've incorporated a lot of veterans and prior service folks. So I've actually never been active duty before, but because of my time in Booz Allen, I go out to the field and they think I'm prior service because I've mingled so much, learned how they operate in the fighting world, and taking my nerdy science background, merging with this tactical information I've learned over the years, it helps us to understand how the battles fought from the warfighter's perspective. And then we look at our ideas and make sure we're building them on top of their expectations. So if I build a solution, I don't need a person with a PhD to figure out how to run my application, right? It has to be light. It shouldn't be too hot. It should be easy to carry because a soldier wants to carry their ammo, water, and a little bit of equipment. So I have to be mindful of that stuff. Now, as a kid coming out of college, I don't know what it's like to, carry all this gear. I'm building a cool thing, right? So at Booz Allen, we've done a good job of, merging your smart people with your prior service folks and kind of leveraging each other's knowledge to build solutions that make sense. So they're not, futuristic, pie in the sky ideas, but practical that we can get it out to the field as quickly as possible. Over.
Yeah, I mean, it's like enabling technical solutions, but then also the kind that can be implemented, right? So you don't build that solution that's not going to be able to be tangible and useful on the ground. Laura, can you speak to that as well? Kind of how are you keeping that technological edge in what you're doing?
I think one of the exciting things about being in digital battle space is there are common challenges to a lot of our clients, and we're going to build those within Booz Allen, and that's going to get us to like the 75% solution for each end user. And then we have all these experts throughout our firm that are an expert in, SOCOM, Army, Navy, and work with those experts to get from that 75% to the 100%. So it's the right tool, the right messaging, labeling, different, depending who you are in the military, terminology can mean different things to you. Colors could mean different things. And then if it's a physical device, are you running around and dust is a big issue, or are you moving around on a ship and now you got to worry about salt and water more so than dust. So we'll make that common 75%, get the goodness in there, and then customize so it's the right thing for the right user.
Yeah, I love the collaboration piece, and that always comes out in Booz Allen because you're collaborating within your teams. You're also collaborating with customers. So you really aren't building solutions that exist in a stovepipe. And I think that's why the work stays dynamic and interesting, and you're able to get people kind of invested and hired for a career. So just a reminder to folks, we will take questions as we go through. So if you have questions, we've already had somebody say, what a classy firm, how do I get hired? So Heather will follow up with you later, I'm sure, especially because you've called us such a classy firm that pretty much instant callback. No, I mean, I'm not sure about that at all, but thank you for the feedback. But if you have questions, type it in the questions chat. We will get it to you at some point during the webinar if we can. So definitely don't hold your questions till the end. I have to talk about, you know, the market here, especially within this digital battle space kind of idea. The battle space certainly makes it, you know, there is that warfighter component and focus there, but the technology you're working on, I mean, you all are, you know, are technologists with a lot of commercial sector experience and expertise and skills that are highly in demand in the commercial sector. So with that kind of competitive, you know, dynamic or arm, what makes you choose Booz Allen and what makes the work there unique when you have those commercial sector opportunities? Can you talk to that maybe a little bit, Dake?
Yeah, so you're right that there's that, you know, commercial pull for, you know, the outside world, but then you're solving problems that are very unique, right? When I go into work on a problem at Booz Allen, I can't Google a solution because it doesn't exist, like it's in the public world. So you're given the opportunity to really exercise your brain, right? And you can't do it on your own. You have to deal with people, leverage people's skill sets, because I can tell you just a week ago, I called Steve like, hey, I want to build a custom switch. What are your ideas? Because I have an idea of what I want to do, and then there's what the reality is, and then things we can innovate. So a lot of our solutions are things that you kind of have to work within the team and this frame that is not available to public work, because our problem set in the defense world is definitely different from what's out in the commercial world. Vulnerability is a huge thing. So if you're trying to solve a problem, you want to solve a problem without telling people we have this problem, right? So it's a very dicey scenario, but it's also the challenge of being responsible to guard the secret of the problem, but find a solution without telling the world we found a solution.
I love that. And same for you, Laura. What could you respond to that? Like working at Booz Allen versus pursuing commercial sector opportunity, what makes the work you do unique?
Yeah, I think myself and a lot of my team are very motivated by the mission. And it's very rewarding when you're developing something for a client, you hear from them what their challenges are, what they need, you understand the criticality of it, you know, what happens if this software device doesn't work, what can they accomplish if it does work? And then the best is when you get to hear the stories. You know, you deploy something and then if they're able to share how it was used operationally and what impact it was made. So it's very, very fulfilling in terms of like my life. Whereas, you know, commercial company, usually the goal is revenue and consumers and that's nice, but this makes me very excited and very driven to get up in the morning and do what I do.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about the collaboration, the teams. Maybe kind of speak to how that collaborative part comes in. Jonathan asked a question like, what is the typical size of a team within this space? I don't know if you can speak to that, Laura, or how some of your teams are structured, or how it all fits in. I'm sure it differs based on the program or project, but are there any kind of broad strokes thoughts on how teams are structured?
Yeah, it varies quite a bit depending on the size of the program. Yeah, bigger jobs could be hundreds of people and run for years. And then I've also done jobs that were like 4 people and it was 3 months to get this thing done. So it just runs across the board. But the constant is that pretty much everybody I've ever worked with here is amazing. And like I truly enjoyed and looked forward to talking to them and seeing them and working together.
Yeah. And Heather, I want to bring you in quick. We've had a couple questions again on that military transition side and piece of it. So can you kind of briefly touch on military transition programs or DoD skill bridge, or kind of what maybe some of that upskilling or reskilling might look like on these digital battle space teams?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we have a great transitioning military team that's out there working, you know, some of my colleagues in the recruiting field, going out there and, you know, helping people to make that transition, back into the working world, we work with hiring our heroes as well. We have fellowship opportunities, which gives you the chance to come and work with us, see what it's like, and then hopefully find a contract where we can bring you on full time if that is what you choose at the end of the fellowship. So it's a great way to introduce people and to give them the chance to see how their skills that they were utilizing out in the field and that they learned out there, how they can really help the mission and help Booz Allen to be successful with our clients. And, you know, one of the great things that we do have here at Booz Allen is our Flex Eds benefit, which is a great opportunity to enhance your skills. And I've been using it since the minute I walked in the door. And it's one of the reasons that I actually joined Booz Allen. I was finishing up my master's and I had paid you know, for my bachelor's and my master's on my own. And I knew that I wanted to take it further, but I also knew that I was going to have some serious student loan debt if I didn't find somebody to help me. So the opportunity that Booz Allen offers for our Flex Education benefit is unlike any that I've ever seen. We do offer a tenure-based program. For the first 2 years, you receive $5,250 a year towards your continuing education. Those can be used towards advancing degrees. I'm working on my doctorate in management now, and Booz Allen is helping me to pay for that. It can also be used for certifications, professional licenses, or any of the memberships that go along with maintaining and continuing education credits for those certs. And even when we get back to in-person conferences, it can help to pay for conference attendance. So that is the federal limit of what the firm can give you tax-free without having to claim that, you know, you've taken that. But in addition and on top of that, Booz Allen goes above and beyond. So from years 2 through 5, you receive $7,500 a year total. And then once you've been with the firm for 5 years or more, you receive $10,000 a year. So, you know, it's just a great way to help expand on your skills and your skill sets. And really, you know, the firm views it as giving our employees a chance to grow personally and professionally and be, you know, more of a benefit to us, but it's going to benefit your career in the long run. So ultimately, you can take that anywhere you go.
Awesome. I love that. Well, something we talked about a little bit that you've mentioned that's come up several times is this kind of modern economy for the new battlefield. I think Steve, you kind of introduced it, kind of talked about some of your industry partners, even Booz Allen works with. Kind of define that. What is this modern economy to the new battlefield, and how is this team, you know, making that happen?
Boy, so you know, if you think about how we work, you know, when we hire people, we don't just hire an electrical engineer to throw him on a contract and that's his job for the rest of whatever, or her job. You know, we hire you as a smart electrical engineer that we think can transcend that job. And one day when that job ends, you're going to help us win the next one and win the next one, and you're going to consult on 5 other jobs, because you might be working on an R&D thing here with photonics, like I've been working on. Or you might be over here working on a radio scalability problem like Dake works on with tactical radio. You know, you might be working on a cybersecurity problem where you're trying to get something through the RMF process so it can be safely used by soldiers on the battlefield. We do all these things, tying us into AWS, you know, into the cloud, right, for C2S or for the military versions of those cloud environments. All of those things matter, because when we get into a peer fight, you know, being able to talk to our weapons, to talk to our platforms, to talk to our satellites, move the data around on the battlefield is going to matter. And the side that can move their data around and control the action is going to be the side that's victorious. And, you know, the side that can't is going to fail. And so it's very important that we tie all these things together in a way that makes sense. And allows us to take advantage of the capabilities that are being developed by companies like Google and AWS and Apple and so on. And so I'll leave it at that.
So yeah, and that ties into, we did get a question about the interoperability. Am I gonna be able to say that? I'll say it. I will say it once. I'm done. You know what I mean, everybody. So interoperability between all of these systems and even between the military components is such an issue. Is that one element of kind of what this conversation is doing? Dake or Laura, do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, that's a huge thing. It's one of my major things, almost on a day-to-day basis for me, because you have multiple systems that weren't designed to talk to each other. They all had a purpose, and then we're like, oh wait, it'd be important if we could know what each other's doing, right? So when you have different cooks that are making different meals, we need to have a translator between, and we don't need it to be a human translator. We want it to be automated, right? So that's one of the biggest things where as we are building new capabilities, we're also looking at backwards compatibility as well and talking to things on the side so we can get a big holistic picture, because the best view on the battlefield is where you can see everything. So that's one of the key things for us. And interops are huge, whether it's testing or building new translations in between. Those are the things we need to get to glue the battlefield together.
Mel pointed out I did in fact say it twice, probably wrong both times. I'm going to steal Dake. It's interops, people. It's interops. I can't say that ability. That's just too many syllables for this time of the day.
That's right.
Laura, did you have anything on the interoperability? Interops. Anything on interops?
Yeah, there's a lot of common challenges. Cross-domain solutions is another one. Data needs to go low to high, then high to low, and how do you help the clients move that data around and design the system so that you're not getting bogged down in those movements, because it needs to move fast.
And so talk a little broader again. We'll go. We keep going. I like to juxtaposition the mission questions with the tactical questions here. But talk about kind of what it takes to be successful on these teams, on your teams. They can be specific examples or more broadly for Booz Allen. Can I start with you, Steve?
Yeah, broadly with Booz Allen, I mean, so not a team specifically, but just being successful overall at Booz Allen. We like to move the needle. If you're on a team, you want to contribute, you want to be aggressive. Aggressive is not the wrong word. Fearless. I hired a candidate who was amazing systems engineer, and she was because she was fearless. She contributed. She added. She developed stuff and put it out there for criticism, and she grew from that. You don't grow when you're silent. So getting out there, doing that stuff, socializing risk is another thing that we do at Booz Allen. We hunt as a team. We hunt as a pack. We work together to win things. And so you don't go out there and sign off on something without talking to your peers. You talk to the people you work with. You work together to figure out if something's a good idea and bring it forward. You don't take risks yourself and say, well, hell, I just decided to do it. And then probably the hardest thing for all of us is you hire your replacement. And as much as I'd like to say that, we hire Laura and she's the smartest person in her particular brand of technology of any Laura there ever was, I want 10 more Lauras, and I want 10 more Dakes, and what I want them to do is eventually bring up some of those new people coming in and teach them all the good things they've learned and show them the mistakes they made so that they don't necessarily make the same ones. And that's something that I tell people, and I was told over and over again when I joined Booz Allen, is hire your replacement. But then aside from that, like I said, with the team, be fearless, and that doesn't mean shoot your mouth off. Study, learn the material, understand what you're trying to accomplish, and be fearless with your ideas.
Dake, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, use your resources, right? People around here to help you. And if you're too shy to ask for help, you're going to suffer in silence, you will get nowhere, right? There's so many things that I don't know, but I know there's somebody that knows how to do it. So if you always ask for help and ask for questions, you're more likely to get things done. And you have to want to be ambitious in hitting your own self-described goals, right? So you mold your own career in Booz Allen. You can decide that today I came as an engineer, in 3 years I'll go HR. You can do that. You can chart your own path. So as long as you're happy about the work you do, and Booz Allen will give you the opportunity to be happy in what you do. You have to define what happiness is to you and pursue it. And that's the best way to get around Booz Allen.
Laura, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, to expand on what Dake was saying, we have a fairly flexible culture. It's not a rigid structure. So if you're a self-motivated person and you want to go after something, usually nobody's going to stop you. And you need to ask for help though to pull the right people together to accomplish what you want to go after. But it's exciting. So if you're passionate about something, we'll help you find a way to do it.
Yeah, we had a question come in, so you're building all these solutions, how do you ensure they're implemented? I feel like Laura answered that question at the beginning here. You're really building, critical solutions to the 75% mark, And then when you allow the customer to lead in or your partners to lead on that 25%, that ensures that they actually get implemented. So I think they're making sure like, hey, all this technology is great, but what if it doesn't get into the warfighter or get into the battle space? Well, that's why the partnering is key. I like to answer questions for people sometimes because it's in my head and I feel compelled to say, Laura told you they build the solution center and then they partner with the warfighter and they bring it to the next level. But do you have anything to add on that and how you ensure these actually get into the hands of the people they need to get in the hands to?
Well, if you're on contract to deploy something, operationally deploy, then you usually have, pretty comprehensive process and a schedule to go through that, and you always have to engage the end user early and often, and that's critical. So making sure you're all on the same page about the requirements, which then translates into the design and development, and then there should be multiple test points. And usually there's some kind of beta test or something where it's just sort of like play with it, see what happens, what do you love, what do you hate, before you move into the more serious acceptance testing where it's now we have to make sure everything perfectly works before this goes live.
Yeah, I love that. The testing, you have the research phase, you have the execution, implementation, the testing phase. Doc, do you have anything else too?
Yeah, so just to capitalize on that. So we do also participate in field testing where we abstract ourselves from the solution and have soldiers run it. So we can be oversight, but if you're at the maturity level that's ready to be deployed, you shouldn't have to get a Booz Allen expert to run it, right? So we go through the steps like Laura mentioned, and then eventually there's a field test where you're just standing by just watching, like, it better work now because we've done a lot of work to get here. Now soldiers go run it. And I've been a part of a lot of those myself. So I've been a soldier to try it out. And then I know how it works, how it can improve. Then I make my changes and hand it over to an actual soldier and tell them, go, this is a training, I'll go run it. Go pretend to take over a village. Go rescue somebody and just exercise it. And that is what determines if it gets actually fielded and implemented.
Those are also a great learning opportunity. I love sending like a junior software developer or test engineer to these events to see the user actually use it because they think differently, so it's like, oh, you're supposed to press that button. And then the end user's looking at you like, why would I ever know to press that button for that? That doesn't make any sense. And then reality is hitting that developer, and now they see it in a whole new light. And I love making that happen. But teachable moment.
Or you're not supposed to use pliers on that. It's,
right.
it's
yeah. You can't stop
only.
them.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, I'm banging it. Yeah.
I love it. Well, and so Joe commented, it sounds very agile based. Concur? Agile based? Yeah. I mean, I would say so. So kind of talk about the hiring process. Again, I always get really excited on these webinars. I'm ready to start my job. Completely unqualified for all of your positions, I'm sure. But walk me through a little bit about that typical hiring process, Heather, what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Our recruiting approach at Booz Allen is very candidate centric. We take time to listen to the feedback from our candidates that have been involved in the process. And what has been shared by our candidates is the importance of transparency and relationships. As such, we know that you want to know what to expect and when to expect that information as you begin the recruitment journey. So that is why we created this candidate experience journey map to use as a visualization of who you will meet and when you will meet them along the way. We value the time you take to learn more about us and want to ensure that we provide a consistent, transparent, communicative experience as you move through every stage of the recruiting process. More details about our candidate experience can be found on the career resources section of our career webpage, careers.boozallen.com. You'll also find more information there about the resources through the application process, including frequently asked questions, benefits, and interviewing tips to help you prepare for those interviews. As you can see here on the journey map, you're going to start out by applying in the system, as I mentioned, at careers.boozallen.com. Your application will go through a review process with a human being. We are not currently using AI yet to weed through those applications, but you will be reviewed based on the basic qualifications of the position by a recruiter or a recruiting source or partner. And one of the recruiters will reach out to you. This is a conversation to verify the information on your application and your resume, just to see and ensure that you do meet those basic qualifications. And it also gives you the chance to talk to the recruiter prior to going into the interview to help you prepare. You'll have the chance to ask any questions about the interview itself, and you can get some more information about the recruiting process and kind of where you'll go along the way. And that recruiter will be your point of contact throughout the entire process. There will be a few other people that come in and out, such as our recruiting coordinator. They'll be the ones that schedules your interview with our team. They'll provide all of the information to help you prepare for that interview, dates, times, names of everybody you'll be talking with. One of the biggest things I always recommend is, as soon as you know who you're talking to, head on over to LinkedIn and see if they have a profile active on social media. Get to know the interviewers a little better. Sometimes you can find things that you have in common. You can find things that maybe you want to ask about, questions a lot about their career. If they have a lot of information on the social media page, you can find some great questions to ask them during the interview process as well. Following the interview, recruiter will reach back out with feedback, and the team will make their selection. If you are moving forward in the process, the recruiter will work with you through the rest of this process that you see here. If it is decided that you just maybe weren't the best fit for this role, the recruiter will continue to stay in touch. A lot of times I'll have those conversations following interviews where, it was so hard to make a decision and we had to go with one candidate, but the other two were still great. And we'll maintain that relationship with you because we could have other opportunities. There's opportunities every day that are changing. So, just because I don't have something today and this one was filled doesn't mean that tomorrow or by Friday, I won't have something else that makes me think, oh yeah, I should reach out to you again. So creating that relationship and maintaining it is really important to us, even if we don't move forward in this process. But once you are selected, we will move forward to the offer process. Offer negotiations would happen here. And once you've accepted an offer, we'll move forward with completing a background investigation and getting your start date scheduled, which can all happen within about 7 days of accepting your offer. And you'll work with an onboarding specialist to prepare you for your first day. They'll be able to walk you through everything. A lot of things can be completed prior to getting signed on for your first day, such as documents, I-9s, things like that. We'll get that all taken care of administratively prior to your first day, so we're not wasting a ton of time on that. And then once you start with the team, you'll have a day one point of contact, a career manager, and a job leader that will be assigned to help navigate your career and the beginning of your onboarding experience with Booz Allen.
I love it. So Nicholas asked what the time frame is for this process. I'm sure it varies by position, but are there any general benchmarks that you give to folks?
And it does vary based on position. Sometimes we are recruiting for opportunities that we're bidding on. So we do put out contingent offers based on the award of those contracts. Sometimes we're recruiting for a contract that's sold and funded and ready to go right away. And it really just kind of depends on the position and the contract. I would say timeline-wise, from the point that you've been contacted and speak with a recruiter, you should be through the process within about a week, maybe a week or two to get you to offer, accept, and background screen and all of that. So total timeline, I'd say it's about 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, and somebody asked about, background checks and all of that. Well, if you're going through the clearance sponsorship process, that's obviously separate, but those times are vastly improved. So you can find that information over at clearancejobs.com if you have to obtain a clearance. And Booz Allen's good about indicating that, which positions you're able to sponsor folks for clearance and which ones already require clearance. If I'm right on that, Heather, so you can kind of get that. There are positions where you can sponsor. There's also ones where you have to already have a clearance, but working with a recruiter on that and then checking out the rec and seeing how they post it, you should clearly know where that is the case. Also got a question about certifications, technical skill sets that are in demand on this team. Maybe Steve, do you want to take that? Are there certain certifications or programming languages or technical expertise that are particularly high demand?
Oh goodness, a lot of the security stuff, and I'm no expert on them, but a lot of cybersecurity certifications are asked for by the customer. I can tell you, for example, to be chief architect on the 80s contract, which we were running, CCNA was required. So one of the Cisco certifications was required. But, you know, it's very contract dependent. So usually what will happen is the government will put out a job that they're willing to, you know, a person they're willing to accept for this particular position. And it'll say, you got to have Security Plus, or you got to have CCNA, or you got to have, you know, whatever. I don't know, Doc, maybe you know better than I do what TAC Radio's been looking for recently.
Yeah, so pretty much Security Plus will probably be the thing at that level. And then when it comes to, you know, software development, you know, we're looking at Java, Python, and then some of the more modern languages like Go. But I'd say that majority of languages are Java, Python. A little C++ here and there.
AWS too. That just occurred to me.
Yeah.
Those AWS professional developer and architect, I think, were the two big ones I saw. Professional. One of my guys just got both of those, and that was a big deal.
Yep.
Any. But I think it just having certifications definitely helps the position, and that's the benefit with a company like Booz Allen, because you have a breadth of opportunities. So you can even see on one team here, there are different niche skill sets working together. So if you have that skill set, there's probably some, you know, programming language or certification or security or aspect there. Kendra asked, just how is a candidate like applying? Again, they want to work for a firm like Booz Allen. They're excited about this mission. How do they stand out as a candidate who's applying? Don't know. Who wants to take that?
I'll take that one.
I'll take it. Oh, can I say one thing?
Go for it, Steve.
As a person who often has to look at a stack of resumes, I just want to point out that, you know, I'm going to see a whole bunch of resumes at the same time, and they're all going to call out that robotics project that one teacher made them do, and they're all going to talk about it a different way. But I'm going to recognize it. And I'm going to say, oh, it's that thing they did over there at Carnegie Mellon. And I'm just going to know it's the same thing over and over again. So, you know, what I look for that really jumps out to me is passion for a thing, like something you do on the side, like, you know, programming or other stuff. And this one systems engineer that I mentioned that did so well and was so fearless in all these jobs, we hired her because I don't need a mechanical engineer. I didn't need this person. And one of the guys says, have you seen her webpage? And we went to her webpage, and she had all this robotic stuff she was doing for Johns Hopkins, and arms for people, like, you know, prosthetics and stuff. She was doing all this great work. We said, oh, we got to hire this person. We just got to hire this person. And we did. So if you're just giving us a resume and it tells all the stuff you did in school and the alphabet soup at the top that says, you know, Python and C and all the languages and stuff, everybody has that. It helps me to see that you're passionate, even in your spare time, with things that are hobbies of yours, like drones or other things. And then, you know, like I said, your online presence, so I can see the kind of projects you've done and, you know, cool stuff about them. Sorry, Heather.
No problem. That's pretty much everything I was going to say too. You know, finding a way to highlight what you're passionate about, especially if you have a website that you can call out and create a link in your application. You know, portfolios for comm specialists are always great to be able to see, so we know what you've done. Any kind of portfolio where we can see what you've worked on in the past, that can definitely add to your resume and help us to see different things about you that maybe the resume itself doesn't really call out. And also, I think one of the big things to help you stand out is just going to be, as Steve said, things that you're passionate about that you're doing outside of maybe your everyday job. So, you know, on a resume that may not translate very well, but if there are activities and things that you're doing outside of work that show your passion in the community, even volunteer work. I have a section on my resume for volunteer work, because I work with a lot of great organizations with Booz Allen and on my own. So I do like to call out for that, because one of the programs I did with Booz Allen actually was to help Black Girls Code create a new onboarding program. And that's something that I don't work with on the recruiting side, because I don't have anything to do with that at Booz Allen. But because I did that with another organization, with a nonprofit in the volunteer position, it is definitely something that gave me some HR experience that will be valuable in my career. So adding those types of things to your resume, I think, is definitely something that can help you to stand out.
Okay, we have the go-to question that we have now. Are there hybrid and remote work opportunities? Laura works with her cat, we already established, so I'm pretty sure there are at least some hybrid opportunities, but maybe you all can speak. Steven looks a little, I see a tactical guitar behind him, so I feel like there might be some hybrid opportunities.
I'm one of the 2 employees Booz Allen has that live in Minnesota, so I'm almost 100% work from home. And I'm a distinguished technologist, so I've been here for a while and doing this from here. And there's certainly a way to do it. What I usually tell people is, look, if we hire you for a contract and you come in and work for a customer, I don't particularly care where you live, as long as your customer's happy. And if that means you have to, commute 2 hours to do it, or if he lets you work from home or whatever it is, I'm okay. You just have to understand that, like for me being in Minnesota, for example, you better be pretty darn good and pretty darn helpful and pretty darn responsive, so that other people will say, oh, I need Steve on my team, and boom, they pull you on their team. So I'm always busy. I'm way oversubscribed, and I do it here from Minnesota. And so it's easily done. But, Booz Allen's not going to like hit you with a magic wand and say, boom, you're allowed to work from home forever. We're kind of like attorneys, and, we're tasked with helping customers solve very different problems or organize very difficult processes. And if you're good at that, a lot of people are going to want you to help them do it. And it's on you to be good at that. And if you can do it remotely, that's great.
I love that. Laura, any take on your team, hybrid, remote, how that looks or works?
Yeah, a lot of hybrid. And before the pandemic, my local office, our culture was you go in every day. So when the pandemic happened, I was a little skeptical. Oh my gosh, how's this going to work? But it's been great. And now, my standpoint is you come to the office when you need to. If you need to do stuff on the high side, if you need to sit down with someone and look at a device together, code together. But otherwise, if you can do it from home, great. But you do have to shift to being you got to hold people accountable. You are going to be responsible for your tasks and the quality of those products that you're putting out, which really should have been the case all along, right? So it's not like anything's really changed. But now, it's not enough to just show up. You need to begin things done, and I'll leave it up to you to figure out how many days you need to come in to do that.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of flexibility. It's going to be very much based on the team and the customer and the client and the environment. But maybe speak to that. I think the career mobility piece is big now, and I think that's where Booz Allen has a huge differentiator, because you have a lot of firms are hiring based on this is your contract, but we know that Booz Allen really wants to hire folks for a career and like build out longevity. And even this digital battle space community, like kind of that you have now, there's also opportunities to really pivot and pursue new opportunities. So, can any of you speak to that and like kind of what excites you about that piece of it? How kind of got that, Steve, with your career journey, that you've really, if you're proactive and passionate and finding your next opportunity, but maybe talk about how Booz Allen can help enable that as well. Daka, do you have anything even around that about how, working contract, different opportunities, how that works?
Yeah, so earlier in my career, I was very, very customer focused. I almost never stepped in Booz Allen office because I was always flying off somewhere to solve some problem. And just before COVID, I told Steve, hey, I think I want to make an adjustment, right? And he was like, yeah, come on in. Like, what took you so long, right? So it was very welcoming, and essentially, I get a chance to decide how I want my career to look like. And I talked to him, and we put together a plan of how to get there. So I wanted to get more involved in owning my own team and choosing what kind of projects that I work on from a R&D perspective. I wanted to build solutions, right? And I've spent years with my customer. I know what his needs are. And so now I come back internal to Booz Allen and say, hey, Steve, this is a problem that my customer has. I want to build a solution, and I want to own it. I want it to be my baby, and give me all the things I need, whether it's wisdom, guidance, resources, to make that happen. And here I am today. I have a team, and we're working towards that. And once that takes off, then it opens the floodgates for him to pick my next target and the next milestone. So I'm a clear-cut example of doing just that.
Awesome. And then we had another question about kind of the reskilling piece. So somebody has a civil engineering background, but they would really like to pivot into this security. They're working on their Security Plus and some AWS certifications. Kind of, does Booz Allen, it sounds like, Heather, based on the training programs, once you get on board, that's definitely an opportunity. But what if you're an applicant coming in and your background doesn't really reflect the work that you want to necessarily be doing? Is the best bet to finish up those certifications? Like, how, maybe, are there kind of those reskilling opportunities as you're onboarding folks?
I'll take this one. I would say one of the big things, I went through a career transition. I was 17 years restaurant and retail management before I finished my master's degree in HR. And I came over to Booz while I was finishing up that master's degree. I took it as a challenge personally because I needed a life change. I didn't have any remote work life. I didn't have any balance to my life at all. So one of the big things for me was going out there and making connections. And this is in any type of position. It doesn't have to just be HR, but for me, it was HR. For you, if you want to make a career change, go out and find the people that are working in the roles that you want to be in. Network yourself. Social media is a great opportunity to do that. Get to know those people. Take on a mentor if you can. Find out what those certifications are, what people are looking for that are working in those types of roles that you want to be doing. And that's the best way when you're working on a transition to learn how to be the person that everybody's looking for. By networking with people that are already in those roles, they're going to be able to help you. And then, those certifications, professional licenses, those kind of things. And then also, kind of goes along with what we were saying before and being passionate out in the community. If there's things that you can do out there, volunteering with different organizations, and I can't think of the name, but there's a couple virtual volunteer organizations out there that you can work with. If you're doing those types of things that you want to be doing with these volunteer organizations, that's still experience that can be added to your resume. So you can get experience in other ways, not just your daily job.
Yeah, I love that. I think, trying to find ways to show on your resume that you already have that passion, you're putting it to use before you can actually use it vocationally, I think certainly helps versus saying like, hey, I'm pretty sure I'd be pretty good at this but I think like there are, great ways to network and demonstrate those skills. I kind of want to close out and do a round robin, give all of you a chance to just kind of talk about this digital battle space, what it means at Booz Allen, and kind of your closing. If there was a question we didn't get to or something we didn't address that you were planning on talking to, give everybody a chance to speak to that, because I do think this is kind of like an emerging topic, and so we're still trying to like navigate what does this digital battle space mean, what kind of professionals are the best folks to be pursuing it. So with that completely non-question question, close us out. We'll start with you, Steve. Talk digital battle space at Booz Allen and why folks should want to be a part of it.
Booz Allen is probably the best job I've ever had, and it is because I get to work with amazing people that are passionate. And when I got hired, 8 different senior associates talked to me, and all of them had a different take on why Booz Allen was a great place to work. And I remember the last one asked me if I had time to go over, and I said, well, my wife's waiting in the parking lot. And he said, have her come up. He says, because I have to convince you to come work here, but I have to sell her, because we're going to take a lot of your time and you're going to be busy helping us solve these big problems. And Booz Allen, I don't know if you guys are aware, but Booz Allen handled the NFL merger when the AFC and the NFC got together to form the NFL. Booz Allen handled the Chrysler turnaround. Booz Allen has done some amazing work. It's a historic company with just a legacy of important things that they've gotten their hands into. And we want passionate people, which is why I mentioned that specifically, because if we're interviewing you and you say, any software thing, I just want to do some software work, we're probably not going to be interested. We're interested in people who really are excited about something and want to solve really tough problems and have been just taking them on their own because they want to learn how things work and solve difficult things. So if that's what your mindset is, we want to work with you. We want you to come over here and we'll solve these big problems together. Over.
Love it. Daka.
Yeah, so Booz Allen's a big company made up of little companies. So when you're in it, you don't feel like you're in a big company. I feel like as I meet more people in the firm feels even smaller, right? Um, during my interview process, I was interviewed by a guy who's now our senior vice president, and in the 8 years that he's gone up to that upper level of management, I can still walk in the door and be like, hey, how's it going? Without getting on his assistant's calendar, right? Or I'd call his EA and be like, hey, can you set up a lunch between Mike and I? And it's totally normal. I don't feel the wide gap between he's a senior VP or he's one of the board of directors. It doesn't matter. It's a pretty flat relationship generally within Booz Allen. So you feel empowered to speak your mind, speak your ideas. They're very, very warm and open to alternate ways of looking at things, so that you don't feel shy to express your thoughts, your ideas, and it allows you to definitely foster a lot of collaboration and innovation, because no idea is too stupid, right? You talk to your peers about it, you talk to someone above you or 2 levels above, they might see the big picture of the business that you don't, right? So it's always good to get that aerial view, and that's how we solve problems across the entire space, right? Because it might not be a big deal to me, but this one thing I'm solving here might snowball into a big solution down the line for some group in LA working on the power grid over there, right? So that's one cool thing about being part of Booz Allen DVP.
I love it. Laura?
Well, I like to think of my job as like in a superhero movie where there's that person that the superhero goes to for the cool technology. I like to think of myself as that person. So that intersection of really interesting, challenging, technical problems and really interesting, motivating missions. And I've gotten to do a lot of weird things that I definitely can't talk about here for a lot of different customers over my 8.5 years. And in my imagination, like, could not have fathomed a lot of these things. And so it's like, where else could I do that? So unique.
I love it. That's always a great, takeaway for a job. There's nowhere else you could do that. That's kind of, it tells you you're probably in the right place. So Heather, we've had a ton of questions about how to get in touch with you specifically. And that is a question, good question. Like, do you want people to get in touch with you based on this webinar? Is there a best practice for getting in touch with recruiters without blowing up your inbox after this as they find you on the internet? So what is, like, even some takeaways, next step for candidates? Obviously go to careers.boozallen.com.
Yeah, definitely. Careers.boozallen.com. You can actually sign up for notifications to receive notifications based on the geographies, specific keywords, your clearance level, anything that you want to set up those notifications for. It's really important in this job environment that you get your application in as soon as possible. There are some opportunities that are out there that everybody's interested in that we get hundreds of applicants in within the first weekend. There's others that we don't get as many, but when you do have that many come in, it's very rare that we'll get through the first 20 without finding at least one person that's qualified to hire. So, getting your application in there as quickly as possible is super important. So setting up those notifications on our page will help you to do that. You'll get a notification as soon as the job goes active that meets any of the specifications that you've set up. So that will help to get your application in there quicker. Certainly reach out to me on LinkedIn. I try to keep up with my inbox there as much as possible. I'm maybe 2 days behind, so within 48 hours, I try to get back to everybody. But I am actively on LinkedIn. I highly recommend following the firm too. There's a lot of really cool things that we do, and a lot of really great webinars like this one that we participate in where you can learn a lot more information. And sometimes, we do present webinars based on some things that we've done for our clients, and we get more technical, and the things that we're allowed to talk about, at least we can share with people. So those are some really neat ways to learn and start networking. But I'll always reach back within about 48 hours on LinkedIn, so I would recommend that to reach out to me, and definitely attach a resume on there as well, just so I know what kind of experience you have, and I can try to make that networking connection with some of the people that we have working with us at the firm.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you for participating in this webinar. Dake, I'm gonna find you on the salsa dance floor someday. I mean, I always leave these webinars with some new nugget of information for how I need to advance my career. And I'm glad today it could be salsa dancing. We'll get you a career at Booz Allen. But it was really exciting to talk about this digital battle space. It always gets me excited about the projects and the programs and the work that you're doing. So thank you everyone who participated and who attended. Again, if we didn't get to your question now, I'm sure somebody will be following up with you after the fact. And again, thank you so much to all of our awesome panelists for taking the time to chat about your careers at Booz Allen. It's time to get out there and apply fast, as Heather would say. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.